And we're live. Hi, everyone. Me and John is back. We have half an hour because John needs to go to his conference. And we're going to talk about four lists, maybe five, that are going to Warzone Atlanta. And we're going to talk about a bunch of interesting lists and maybe some of the top picks that we also have, both of us, for who may be the winners of this. Maybe.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
we're making
who
educated guesses, right?
it's V3,
Um,
so we don't know, right?
we don't know. It's true. I don't feel like I'm very accurate yet. How do you feel about actually predicting stuff here? Is that
I
uncomfortable for you as well?
well, so a lot of the scenarios have to do with either capturing table quarters or moving off the edge of the table or towards the edge of the table or objectives.
Yeah.
And so just the gun line lists, which when you just look at the list and go, wow, that's scary, that's very powerful, it
Mm,
doesn't take into account in order to get all those tanks or whatever they got into the list that their infantry ends up being quite weak.
yeah.
So I think the lists may look some lists may look stronger on paper than the way they will actually play out. We'll see.
Mm,
We'll see how the tournament goes. Yeah.
yeah. Right. So I need to go to page 16 for our first pick here. This is, by the way, I'll link this in the notes for this. No, I can't do that. Can I? Yes, I can.
Yeah,
Yes, I can. I'll link this in the description so that you guys can go and watch along with us. There must be an easier way of doing this.
I know there's got to be an easier way, but all the lists come in different formats, and
Yeah.
90% of the time they don't put their name on them, and just getting the lists organized is a nightmare. So yeah, I like
Yeah.
this one.
This is a 21 order dice German Panzer list. Um, has the inexperienced company commander. Love that one.
Who does have the most creative name for a company commander in the group?
Yes. SS Obergruppenführer und General der Waffen-SS Bonbon von Fischer von Miau. Um, someone having fun with that one.
Oh my God, you
And
did that so much better than I would. I'm
and
so
a
glad.
and a Kettenkrat as well. So I'm guessing he'll sit in that, and it will give him a little bit of ablative armor and transport capacity, and a little bit bigger footprint or something. And then he has the rifle platoon with an inexperienced officer. He has an inexperienced squad with shirkers, two of those. So this is the weak infantry you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Three, four, four shirker units, and then
Hitler used
Hanomag.
shirker units.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Inexperienced Hanomag as well. 5-man capacity. So this is set up for you have one of the shirker units inside one of these Hanomags.
Uh,
Again, an inexperienced Hanomag here. 44 points is cheap though, but I wish they were regular. Lots of Hanomags, so this is all mechanized.
So
But
yeah, each of those little squads is going to sit in that, and now they're scoring unit and an armored transport, hoping that the player doesn't have enough anti-armor to kill them. It's a very
yeah,
clever strategy.
yeah, it is. And I guess a lot of platoons will lack enough anti-armor. Yeah, they might kill one or two, but if you're running all of them against their back lines, some of them will go through.
Yeah.
And then an armored platoon here with a Panzer 38. Love my Panzer 38s. Czechoslovakian made. It's the best. Command vehicle, another Panzer 38.
Another Panzer 38, another
Another
Panzer
Panzer
38.
and another Panzer and another Panzer 38. So he's maxing out on these Panzer 38s. What do you feel about that?
So in a world in which the Panzer 2C with that extra machine gun plus the Hitler buzzsaw rule is so good,
Hmm.
you saw a lot of the players go for Panzer 3Cs. I understand in the new Armies of Germany book, I haven't got my copy yet, but that no longer is an option. And so now the
Yeah, it's
Panzer
gone.
38T
Yeah.
becomes your, go-to super cheap German vehicle. This versus a bunch of Panzer ones.
Hmm.
But he does have a light AT gun on all these tanks, so I think it's a very clever strategy. He's got a unique list. I
Yeah.
think he's going to do well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also really like it. It's got a lot of punchy power. And then the hated artillery platoon with a platoon commander in experience, and then Nebelwerfer, 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 Nebelwerfer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
this is gonna hurt.
there's actually only three in his list.
Yeah.
I asked him to tone it down a bit, so there's only three, but there's some chat that fills in. So I think, it's a even three nimble workers if he's lucky, right? Or if the opponent ends up squeezing up, which can happen in some deployments, or because of the terrain on the table.
Yeah. Especially
There's a
with
lot of
1250
lists.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lists with three multi-launchers, and it's this may be the last ride of the nimble warfare. So I'm hearing some rumors that perhaps they're going to get toned down a bit in the next FAQ. So
we can only hope. Yeah. Because before we turned on this conversation, I was sitting watching the Dice Ghost, who put up a battle report this morning, and the first turn he kills 7 units with Nebelwerfers.
that sounds like the first game that you and I played.
Yep.
But you did it with one, so
yeah.
Gosh, was that miserable.
And I didn't even have 7. I had like 2, and that was plenty.
Yeah, it was plenty. Yeah, but if your strategy is just to roll 6s, then this is a good list.
Yeah,
I think he's got a really good list here, and even if you took those Nebel Warfers out and you put 3 autocannons in, or you put really 3 heavy mortars or whatever, it's still a really good list.
Yeah.
His infantry is exceedingly weak. He's got fanatic and experience because the Hitler Youth are fanatics, right? Are they? What's their special rule?
The SS get fanatic, so his shirkers don't actually get.
So other than Jojo Rabbit hijinks, the Hitler Youth don't bring an extra rule in. I'd have to look them up.
Not in the rule book, no.
Yeah. It's in order to get that much armor into the list, you're going to have to sacrifice on your infantry. There's just no other way to do it, and so that's literally what he's done.
Yeah.
Whether will he be able to hold objectives? If someone assaults the transport, that squad's got to get out, and they're going to get wiped out in an assault. Yeah. Assaulting an open top transport is sometimes a double kill because you get it and the transport. Not as likely anymore, but still it's possible. So there's a lot of risk in this list.
You can't afford to sit and wait until turn 5 maybe, and then push up turn 5 once he's softened you up enough, because he is going to soften you up, right? All those T-38s are going to push while the Nebelwerfers are just raining hell on you. It's going to be really difficult stopping him. Yeah. So, this is a strong contender for me. This is one of those lists where I feel like the list in itself could really carry a lot of punch for the player.
Should we go to the next one?
Yep, let's do it. It's page 36. And by the way, no slight to all the players that we're skipping right over your list. It doesn't mean we didn't like it. It just means that we found something that was even more of like caught our attention more. We like that dog in the movie Up. Squirrel. Here we go. Soviets. 5 vehicles, Soviets. 19 order dice. And it's got a platoon commander in a rifle platoon, inexperienced infantry. So again, these shirker units, throwaway units. Regulars with a light machine gun. I like these backline holders now. I really do. And then an artillery observer for the Soviets. What is the trick with these, John?
Well, I mean, the Soviet special rule allows them to re-roll the range, the distance dice. So once the artillery strike comes in, they're likely to get a 10, 11, 12, inch range.
Yeah.
And so that just makes the artillery strike better. I think that people are so, inappropriately sometimes afraid of those artillery strikes that it causes your opponent to deploy in weird ways or to move around in strange ways. So terrified of it coming in. So I think it's just a threat element, and and now it's only 75 points. So.
Yep. I agree. That's also why I used them all during version 2. The artillery observers were, for me, a way to control how my opponent deployed. And then an anti-tank rifle, love those. 48-inch range. Light mortars, 2 of those. and then a Soviet armored platoon. What a surprise. This is, though, a little bit of a surprise. He brings as his command vehicle a BA-20 veteran. A
Yeah, interesting.
veteran BA-20, which is liable to run out in more or less every single game if he fires it, and he does. And then T-60s. All the rest here is T-60s. 4 of those. Love my T-60s right now. I've got 3 of them myself.
So that's the autocannon, right?
Yeah, that's the autocannon miniature tank. It's really small. So I'm not sure about that flamethrower B-20, but
So
and then
I like it for the same reason I like the artillery observer.
yeah.
So when it's on the table, it is a 36-inch threat. So moves up. Well, it's a 24-inch threat if it's not on a road. If it's on a road, right, that thing can just literally be anywhere.
Yeah.
Dropping it. And if you put it into outflank or reserve, especially outflank, now you're terrified. Maybe that's why it's a veteran, so he can reliably bring it in from the from off board. And now
it's even the command tank, so it's super veteran, right? You need to roll a foobar not to come in more or less. So it's really strong, yeah.
I'll tell you, with my armored cars in the last tournament I went to, they constantly would get a single pin on them. I'd roll, they'd fail, and then they'd run off the board. So perhaps the veteran on our recce armored car is a smart thing now. I don't know that we'll see if that becomes a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And then he doubles down on the idea of barbecuing here because he brings an engineer platoon commander, regular, this one.
Yeah.
I'm guessing so that he can come from the reserve or the outflank with some of his engineers. He's bringing body armored engineers, 2 of those really chunky units, Panzerfaust in one, flamethrower in the other, so it can go after different targets, and a flamethrower team, and a truck to transport the officer and 1 or maybe 2 of these. I think 2 actually, because these are small units, so it's 5-man units each. So he can stuff the officer in with the 2 units at the same time.
It's I mean, if he loads up the truck with these and he puts that officer in there, that's a really expensive Scud missile, basically. But wherever that goes, that officer is going to move the truck up. Those guys are going to get out, and they're probably going to kill whatever they hit.
Yeah.
And so whether he holds it back in reserve as this kind of launch missile to go after something that he needs to make sure is off an objective or is done, or whether he keeps it in outflank or reserve as this massive psychological threat, either way, as an opponent, you're going to have to be paying attention to this unit, and that's going to mess with how you play. Meanwhile, he's got all those T-60s rolling along, blazing away with autocannons. I like this list.
Yeah. And notice, John, that the truck is also veteran here, so he's definitely thinking about that outflank. It's a 12-inch move in for the truck, then the 6-inch move for the engineers, and the 6-inch move or 6-inch shot from the flamethrower or the Panzerfaust at 12. He has a lot of threat range from the edges, and he's definitely outflanking those. I like it.
And with not a single Hungarian player coming to Warzone.
Yeah.
So he's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Right. Let's go to page 107 and look at what we dubbed the battle snails.
Oh, I love this list. Yeah.
Wow.
And I will admit that I have a bunch of FT-17s on my painting table. So
you do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I just love the tank. I love the fact that a World War I tank clanks along and it's got everybody scared, including the juggernauts. I mean, if those guys are scared of FT-17s, it's got to be the best tank in the whole war, right?
Right. That means that my British, what is it called, Mark II or whatever, female tank needs to go on the table soon.
It's right up there. Yeah. So as you're scrolling, what this player did, and he's been to Warzone many times. He's a really fun he's a really fun guy, and he plays very bizarre and interesting lists.
Yeah.
And he always comes to the table. I think what's so interesting about the FT-17 list is their special rule. So so go ahead and go through the list, and we'll talk about it.
Right. And he's even given the name Ride to Valhalla. I've bloody love this list. 20 order dice. So he takes the rifle platoon first, of course, he has to. Inexperienced commander, and then backline holders with double light machine guns in these units as well. These are really nice backline holders. He brings an artillery observer, which is really nice for the French as well. So the pins will come. And then comes the Ride to Valhalla, the rides. So the Renault FT-17s with AT guns here.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Low velocity AT guns, 66 points.
So I think the way he's looking at it, I don't know for sure, but it's a 1-inch HE template.
Yeah, it is.
If you look at it as an AT gun, you go, what, +3? I mean, I'd rather have an AT rifle, but it's a armor 7, move 6 inches, howitzers, basically, light howitzers, just rolling along on all these tanks. So I think it's an interesting play, yeah.
Yeah. And then he has some of them with MG turrets, which I like that combination. He brings them veteran, though, because you can spend the points, so you can actually outflank these.
Yeah, you could. And outflanks the way you get across the table. The outflanks because their special rule is slow, pitifully slow, which means they can only move 6 inches, even on a run. So there's no point of ever giving them a run, right?
Nope. Oh well, there could be there is one instance where I would give these a run, which is if I'm very close to an artillery piece and I just run it over.
So
I might assault.
The only way that these are ever going to get to that artillery piece is if they outflank on turn 5 or 6. Yeah,
yes,
because they're so slow. I guess the other consequence is if you think you're about to be assaulted by some unit with anti-tank grenades, if you give them a run order, even though they're only moving 6 inches, they can't hit you.
They can't hit you. Yeah. And then we have another of the rifle platoons just to enable a second Renault FT-17 platoon again, with a couple of them with AT guns here and a couple of them with machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, like this horde of First World War clunky tanks just slowly advancing towards you, firing their guns. He brings an artillery platoon with AA gun here on a rotating platform. I think it's to take care of any pesky air observers that may be coming.
That and its transport. So that Lafley six-wheel truck has double machine guns on the back of it. So which have the flak rule. So it's what would wreck this list stay potentially would be a double American air observer list.
Yeah, with the planes just going down, pinning everything and killing. Yeah, that would really ruin the day. So he brings the flak to stop that. It's a brilliant play. I freaking love it.
Whether he wins big or loses, I think it's just going to be so much fun to play. It's going to be so fun seeing it on the table. Yeah. It's and the tanks are, the tanks along with the Italian tankettes are the cutest armored vehicles of World War II. So he's going to win that award. So
yeah, definitely is. Right. So we're moving on to one of the lists that we also rated to potentially win, which has got all infantry, and it's Ryan's Ranger Danger list. And I can't remember. Could you remember the actual page it's on?
Ooh, I don't. It is.
Here we got the US 12 order dice US. Right, so it's 2 down from this. Okay, I can find it. Here we go. Here we have it.
22 order dice. We're not evaluating. It's not evaluating players at this point. It's just lists. Yeah.
It's just the lists. We're just talking about lists. It's just because I know this list because Ryan sent it to me a couple of times and we talked about it. So, and he's also posted it on the internet. His pictures of all his rangers. 22 order dice, very high order dice count. It's called Ranger Danger because he's got a lot of rangers. Platoon commander, inexperienced. Ranger squads with light machine gun, and then one squad here with 3 submachine guns. All of this, to me, seems very, very strong. They're very difficult to kill, and he can move them before the game starts. Air Observer, Bazooka Team, and a Jeep for the Bazooka Team. And then basically he doubles on that up. So he's got another platoon commander, again, double light machine guns, submachine gun unit, Air Observer, Bazooka Team, Jeep. And then he brings a heavy weapons platoon with inexperienced commander, mortar teams, light mortars, inexperienced UFO style, four of those, and twin bazookas, and a Jeep. So a few Jeeps and a lot of bazookas.
So the Rangers lead. So, but the V3 may become the Ranger edition. I don't know, because you see a lot of Rangers in these lists. That free move before the game begins is really powerful. But then on top of it, he's got a bunch of veteran units, and veterans are hard to kill. Veterans in heavy cover if he uses the cover right, and he's got a lot of offensive threats in the bazookas. I think it is the only list that's tank free. Maybe there may be one more. And what a lot of people I think might have been hoping for V3 is that it would tone down the light tank spam, and then we would go back to more of an infantry game. And it would tone down the heavy artillery. Yeah. So it did tone down the heavy artillery. We don't have any medium or heavy howitzers in the game, and that feels a little bit more like the original mission for it. But man, it didn't tone down the light tanks at all. In fact, it made it worse. So I am really excited to see him bring this list, and I think it's gonna do very well.
Yeah, I think it potentially could. But running against, for instance, that French battle snails list would be very hard for him, because you can maybe kill one, maybe two of the battle snails per turn, but there's just so many of them.
He. But they're not going to kill a lot of him, right? I saw 1-inch templates, not going to kill, and 3 machine gun shots coming off of the tanks, not going to kill a lot of veterans, and so, this is certainly a rock paper scissors list.
It is.
All right, but I think he's going to have a lot of fun with it, and it's going to look great, because I think it's a whole brand new army. I think it's going to look great on the table. Yeah.
Yep. Then you had the final list was a British one, right? Can you tell me a page reference?
I don't know if I can, but it's list number 27. As you go down the list, I could pop it up on my screen. I've got it up.
You do that.
So how do I share?
There should be in the right next to your microphone icon. Yeah.
There we go. Share screen. So you don't need to see that.
There we go.
So what we're looking at here is so he's calling this the UK heavy armor list. It's a British list, but of course it's all made up of light armor, so it's heavy with light armor. Yeah. Right. He's got the ubiquitous inexperienced commander. He's got some infantry squads here that are veterans, but they're small. They're just 5-man units. So I guess he's hoping they'll hold objectives and be able to survive. Maybe, he's got he's got artillery observers and a light mortar, 2 of those. And then platoon 2 and there's 2 of these platoons. So he's got a Mark III tank. So this is the one that looks very World War I as well. It's got the twin turrets on the front of it and a coax machine gun, so it can fire 3 different machine guns. Plus it's got a light AT gun. And then he's got these Vickers 6-ton. I mean, you never saw these. We never saw these on the table before. And he's got a slew of them. So it's got a turret machine gun, and it's they can take them as either double turret machine guns. I think you can take an autocannon version of them as well, but he's got double machine guns on all these. So they're just rolling along, spitting out fire. And because the machine guns are in different turrets, they can fire at different targets. So
you can pin 2 units every single time with these.
Right. And so 3 of them are putting on 3 pins on 3 units. So it's a really fun fire suppression thing. He's got a 2nd platoon, which is a repeat. And there's another artillery observer, so that you can't sit back. He's going to have 4 artillery strikes.
Double observers and a lot of pins at the same. Ooh, I know what he's doing. He's trying to pin you out.
He's trying to pin you out, and then he's got a bunch of light mortars to help with that. And then he's got these tanks that are moving along, spitting out. Each one is spitting out 2 pins at everybody, and the Mark III could spit out depends on 3 units.
Yep. If
So
it
it
doesn't want to
is
use its light AT gun, it can actually
right.
split fire 3 ways. Oh man, yeah,
It's a very clever list, I think.
yeah,
And it's got
and
enough
very
order dice to
unusual.
hang. Yeah,
For an incarnated Brit player, that is a very unusual list.
yeah. It's a 20 order dice British list at 1250. With and there's a bunch of armor 7 tanks. So again, if people don't have enough anti-armor, you're going to be struggling to suppress them. The little
Yep.
tanks are rolling along, and those tanks aren't slow, and they don't have one-man turret, although they should. And they
Mhm.
and they're just great. And I think this is a really clever strategy in this list.
I think so too. Um, One thing I'm wondering about is he's got to be using the Vengeance National Special rule, right? That that
So
that would that would make so much sense for this list.
what does Vengeance do?
Vengeance is the one where if you have enemies inside of 12 inches of you, you can maybe remove a pin. Um,
Right.
because he doesn't want to fire extra rifle shots. He doesn't want to charge and go close combat. He uh, Vengeance would definitely be yeah. Oh, this is going to be a tough list to be against because do you have enough anti-tank to stop this one or the battle snails one? This is oh yeah.
Yeah, and this one, and any of these armored lists, like the ones with all the Panzer ones, there's one where the guy's got a Panzer one, or that one with all the 38 T
Yeah.
tanks, right? Their ability to spit out a whole bunch of pins early on in the game, which then stalls whatever your offensive thing was. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's a good strategy. His problem, like a lot of these lists we've looked at, is the infantry is really, really weak, and so if someone takes
Yes.
out the infantry, you can't hold objectives, and you're gonna have a hard time. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole ball game for Warzone Atlanta, I think. Can you stop the armor? Do you have enough power to stop the armor or take out the opposing infantry? One or the other, that's what you need to do. Anywho, so
So
those were yeah.
there's one more I want to talk about, and that's the Japanese list, and we don't have to pull it
Oh,
up on the
let's do
screen.
that.
Or can you get to it? It's list number 19, and that list we just
I
saw
think
was
I should
list
be able to
25.
do it. It should be yeah. Just a sec. Let me share my screen. If you stop sharing yours, I can maybe go get us that one. It should be on page 90 something.
So for the Japanese, it really is a dilemma because your national special rule, which was so strong, and I never thought it was too strong. I thought it was very strong, but
Yeah.
the Banzai rule doesn't work like it used to. So it's not an automatic launch.
Mm,
It's not up and atom anymore, right? So if you try to launch an assault and you fail, you get to re-roll your dice.
yeah.
So before bringing inexperienced troops, if you get a bunch of pins, you could just ignore it. You just kept moving across the table. That rule is gone. So how do you build a Japanese list today? What do you do? I think this one's one where I think they've been very thoughtful how they built this list. I
Mm.
mean, you've got
19
go
order
go ahead.
dice,
Yeah,
company commander,
yeah.
rifle platoon, platoon commander, and then light machine gun. Okay, 8-man veterans.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Veteran Japanese on the table. Isn't that interesting? Keep going here.
More 8-man veterans. More 8-man veterans. And a suicider. One, two, three of those. Yeah, of course, of course. And then Horo, Chiha as well. Heavy weapons platoon as well here. With a regular officer and heavy mortars with spotter.
Heavy mortars are so good.
Yeah.
Where medium and heavy artillery is probably not a great choice anymore because the
Mm,
minimum ranges are so long that you really can't hope on dense trade tables. They're going to be very difficult to get your points back. A heavy
yeah.
mortar doesn't have that.
No.
It's
And that
probably the best
HE3 is a
artillery.
big template.
Yeah.
So if you get hit by one of these, you're in trouble. And he brings 2 with spotters, which the spotters could actually work for the whole row as well if he wanted it to.
Yeah.
Um, More suiciders, padding out his order dice, and then a recce platoon, a single militia unit with anti-tank grenades, so he can charge all those battle snails, and
Yeah.
a truck with
So
a flak gun. 2 trucks
another
with flak.
2 trucks. Yeah. So there's some of those squads had some tough fighter in them, so you got some veteran
Mm.
tough fighter, not a lot,
And
but
they could go in the trucks, right?
right. And the suicide guys could go into the truck. So again, that's kind of that weird. You put suicide guys in a truck with an officer, and then that drives up, and then it launches them out. Right? It's like another kind of missile delivery system. I think it's
Mm.
interesting. And by putting the trucks into the recce squad, now those trucks have the recce rule. And
Yeah.
sometimes when somebody shoots at you, it allows you to actually move forward to get out of cover, out of line of sight in a way that can actually get your threat even farther down the board.
Yeah.
Or if it's a scenario where you're trying to get into the opponent's deployment zone or off the table, please shoot up my truck so that I can drive 24
Mm.
inches down the table
Yeah.
and then, load it up with a bunch of those small platoons to get off the table. So there's a lot of strategies in this squad. But I thought it was just interesting, like, what's the Japanese player to do
Yeah.
in V3?
And this is definitely a potential solve for that, because running those veterans, that will mean that even though you are mostly an infantry force, you're still going to be a lot more chunky. You're going to have a lot more staying power. I like it.
There were so many other very clever lists, but we only have so much time, and
Yep.
and looking at lists on screen isn't the most exciting content either. But I, hey Bo, I appreciate you doing this review. I think it's really fun, and I think a lot of the players will appreciate your take on their lists. So
Let's hope we correctly anticipated what they're going to do and read their intentions. Good luck to everyone going to Warzone Atlanta. And John, have a nice working weekend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we can.
Cheers.
Cheers.